Cathedral windows. Interesting subject. I'm going to show you how to do cathedral windows. There are various ways of actually achieving the cathedral window, but I will show you how you could create a cathedral window box, or maybe you just want a panel of cathedral window patchwork. One way to make cathedral window patchwork is take a square of material. Now, read the measurements. If you want to end up with a 4-inch block, you'll need to start off with an 8-inch square. But before you just go ahead and cut 8 inches, remember to add your seam allowances on. So I have in front of me an 8.5-inch square. Now, one way of doing it is to systematically fold the raw edge in 1/4 inch on all 4 sides. That's a nightmare because you get really hot fingers from folding it in. It distorts. It's not a good idea at all. But had you done that, the next stage would to bring the 4 corners into the middle and press them again. So you'd end up with something that looked a little bit like that. That is stage 1 of cathedral windows, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do something subtly different. You're going to take an 8.5-inch square and fold it in half with the right side on the inside and sew down the 2 short sides, making a little bag. And now I'm going to show you what you're going to do after we've stitched down the 2 short sides. So having sewed down the 2 sides, making this little bag, you're going to open the bag, bring the center seams together, match them up. Now, whether they're open and flat or whether they're latched, i.e. one goes one way, one goes the other way, sometimes called nested, it matters not. But you'll need to straighten it. So put a bit of stress on it and straighten it. And you're going to sew from one corner to just past the middle. You're going to leave a hole and finish the seam off. And it's going to look something like this. Can you see? Nice and straight across there. Leave a hole, there's no need to write the word hole, and finish the seam off. When you've done that, it'll pay you just to clip in the middle here by that center seam on both sides to prevent any drag, and also take the 4 corners off. So just knock the 4 corners off. Do not cut through the stitching, so take all 4 corners off. When you've done that, you're going to turn it through the hole and press it nice and flat. And with luck, you should end up with a square. When you've turned it through, first of all, don't worry about the little hole. You need not fuss about stitching that up. The only time it ever gets stitched up is if I don't like the student. And as I like all of you, it's absolutely fine. Right, you're going to bring the 4 corners to touch in the center. And it will pay you, a little bit of fluff there, is to pin one to the middle first, and then bring the others before you press it. So pin the 4 points to the center and then press it really well. So like that. There we go. And then you're going to press it extremely well. When you've pressed it, it's going to resemble something like this. Now, to make a cathedral window, you've actually got to have 2 blocks exactly the same. So there are my 2 blocks. You could, if you wanted to, finish them off by anchoring them in the center and then sewing them together by hand down there. Or what about this little trick? Don't do anything, stay as you are, take those 2 flaps and then stitch the 2 blocks together down the crease. Top tip is start in a bit, reverse to the edge, straight across there and back again. When you've done that, you'll link these together invisibly, and that's when you can bring the 4 points together and do a little cross stitch in the middle. There in the center is where the cathedral window will actually go, and you'll need to cut a piece of fabric round about smidgen smaller because it gets laid in the center there, and then the raw edges of the piece of fabric get rolled over. Now, one of the big problems with this particular piece of fabric is it's apt to fray. Therefore, if you were to put a stiffening or an anti-fraying agent like H310 on the back of it, that's going to prevent fraying of this small scrap in the middle. So I've pressed a piece of the H310 to the back. Lay this inside the window and roll the raw edges of the outer fabric over the center and stitch them down. Now, you could consider doing a variety of things. First of all, this can be any fabric you like. Why not place perhaps a piece of wadding underneath it and have a slightly puffy centre. This could be velvet, it could be anything you liked, but certainly the addition of some H310 will stop it from fraying. If you want to make more blocks, then you simply stitch 2 lots together and you'll have enough for 4 cathedral windows, 1 there and indeed 1 there. That is the basis of cathedral windows, but you could take 1 cathedral window block and turn it into a neat little box. So if we're going to make a box, we need a bit of stiffening. In order to stiffen the box, I have a piece of the S133, which is lovely stiffened fabric with a fusible side. I've also got a bit of H640, that's a fusible wadding. And my fabric I'm going to have for the little bit of material showing through the arcs when I roll the edges back. If you fuse all 3 together, so S133, with the fusible side up, using a press cloth, fuse the H640, leaving the fused side up, and fuse the fabric together. That makes a wonderful sandwich. And the reason for putting the H640 there is it just gives it a padded effect. Otherwise, if you're straight on to the 133, it's a bit flat. It needs that little bit of softness, so a bit of fluff. Once the whole lot's been fused together, then you're going to place it inside the cathedral window block, bring the 4 corners to the centre, anchor them down with a small cross stitch. Now this is going to show, so please do it tidily. Once you've done the cross stitch, we're going to roll the edges back of all the folds, so you roll back the edges of all the folds to reveal the underlying colour. Now, a top tip, and just let me do a cross stitch in the middle, is when you're going to do a cross stitch, I'd start off with a knot on the back, under there. I'm just going to do this roughly, you'll do it much better, won't you? Yes, of course you will. Yeah, cross stitch there. Now I'll go into that one. Bring that one across and perhaps take it under there and up to there. And then just finish it off. So remember, this is going to show, so beautifully neat would be wonderful. Or the addition of a small button in the middle would work even better. I'll just cut that off. Right. What is quite a good thing to do is on the corners here, to prevent anything showing at all, is just to nip the corners together with a couple of stitches. You can see I've done it here. When you've nipped the corners together with a couple of stitches, that's when you can roll back all these edges. And they roll back because the fabric is folded on the bias. Now my second tip with cathedral windows is when you come to roll these back, you sew up to where they roll back and down the other side. Don't go right to the very end, go up to there and down to the other side. To make the box, you'll want 5 of these. In the middle, I would just simply put a little bag with a bit of the S133 and the wadding inside. That is, of course, exactly the same size as the cathedral window blocks. Sew them together as a small cross shape. Then all you do is fold the sides up, stitch them down, and we have a box just like that. There you are, cathedral window box.